And I want to leave not only telling stories about how I've overcome these things in workplaces, but also leave giving people like practical, actionable tips that they can employ that I can virtually guarantee will affect the culture, because culture is just a bunch of people interacting with each other. And there is nothing that either warms or cools a culture like mental health when it's so dependent on interpersonal interaction.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to another episode of Engage Presents. I am Engage President Jake Olson alongside with Johnny Crowder. First off, I love the name. I don't know why I love the name. I just do. So I think your name is very fun. But I also think it's very fun that you sing in a metal band.
Yes, it is maybe the least surprising thing about me when people see me. I always say, I know, I look like I just got off the stage at some metal festival and everyone laughs. And then I'm like, it's because I did. That's why I flew here from that festival. People
So
crack up.
I,
Like,
I am a metal fan, man, actually. I really do enjoy my metal music. I learned to love it in college working out in the weight room. So kind of what kind of metal, like what brand of metal kind of do you sing?
yeah, I am. So I grew up on all of the great alternative metal and new metal bands like turn of the century. So you got your Linkin Park, you got your Korn, you got your Slipknot, you got your System of a Down, like that whole group of bands shaped my music taste. So even though I toured in a black metal band and a death metal band for a long time, I grew up listening to hardcore. I still do, but I have this huge heart for new metal and alternative metal. So today, that is the number one genre that I default to or listen to the most.
Do you like a band called I Prevail?
I'm actually not familiar with their music, but I've seen their name on like every single tour flyer. They are much bigger than us. I will be honest about that.
No, I know the singer really the not the scream singer but the just the normal vocal singer. He reached out, so become a good friend of mine. So I definitely like I've been to a couple of their concerts, and I gotta say, being at a metal concert, I don't think I've been anywhere that's been so energizing and just great. Like I just it's like it is the one of the most energizing places you could ever be.
Yeah, it's kind of different going to I like other genres of music, but I got to be honest, if I go to see another genre live, it's just not the same. Like I love hip hop. I'll go to a hip hop show and I'm like, dang, it just doesn't have that like energy like you said.
That's so cool. Well, okay, so John, this is interesting because you've been open about how your appearance has kind of impacted your, your talks and how you deliver your speeches and stuff. I can't see what you look like, so tell me what you look like. One, because you've already mentioned it, and then also kind of explain what you mean when you say something like that.
Yeah, well, Jake, I have a 12 pack abs. I know you can't see it, but I'm in a mansion right now. Just my yacht just dropped me off.
Dude, that's crazy, man. Like I need to get your number.
No, I am ever since I was a kid, I would draw on myself. I loved uh art. I loved the idea of tattoos on my body. And pretty much the second I turned 18, I had a big long list of tattoos I wanted to get. So pretty much my whole life, I had planned on having beautiful artwork all over my body. So I remember when I first started working with my current agent, I was nervous about getting my neck tattooed because that's a pretty visible one. Like, yes, my hands and my fingers are done. I have a little bit on my face, but I was like, Randy, when I put on a suit, the first thing people are going to see is a great big throat tattoo. Like, am I going to make your job harder? And he goes, Johnny, you are covered in tattoos. My job is already plenty hard. Like, I don't think anybody will even notice if you get your throat done. And he said, actually, this was really encouraging to me. He said, for the first 10 years of your career, probably nobody wanted to book you because you looked like you do. But now, over the last 5 years, I've been speaking for 14, 15 years. And he said, now we're almost seeing a change in sentiment where people do want a speaker that's different, do want somebody who doesn't look like they're cut from the same cloth as every keynote they've had for the last 2 decades. And he's like, if anything, this could actually work to your advantage. And interestingly, I think he's right. I don't think aspiring speakers should necessarily tattoo their throats to get more gigs, but I'm saying it certainly hasn't backfired.
Okay, I know this might be asking like which is your favorite kid, but what is your favorite tattoo you have?
Oh, my hands for sure.
Okay.
So I have on my knuckles say save them. And ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to save the whole world. So far, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be, but I'm still trying. And then on the backs of my hands, I have a lion and a lamb. And the quality of the artwork is just absolutely mind-blowing. I will like, if I sit in a waiting room at a doctor's office, I will just sit there and look at my hands and just sort of gaze like they're a painting or something.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool. I'm sure we could spend the rest of 10 minutes talking about all your tattoos, and I would love to do that, but we do have some messages I want to get across. So talk about this app you created, Cope Notes. It's a really, really cool concept, and it's used in over 90 countries, so it's very successful. But talk about kind of what made you want to start that, and what it's done for people and even you.
Yeah, I grew up with severe mental illness, and you couldn't, I'm telling pay me to see a professional, to take medication. Like, I didn't want to read your books. I didn't want to do your exercises. I just had this huge internal self stigma. I was so in denial about what I was going through. And a lot of people were encouraging me to seek treatment, but that felt like such a huge step. Like, there's nothing between living my life as is and then going to a doctor's office and telling them what's going on in my life. That felt like such a huge leap. And I wanted to create something that was kind of in between. So something that maybe it's not the biggest step you've ever taken, so it's not so intimidating, but it's also not nothing. So you're not just crossing your fingers and hoping that it goes away. And basically, what we do is we send randomly timed text messages that interrupt negative thought patterns with health education content like psychology facts or journaling prompts, exercises, just one per day at a random time. And what's so cool is that these interruptions actually legitimately change the way your brain processes information and teach you how to combat stress, anxiety, depression. So I tell people it's like brain surgery without the scalpel, like 15 seconds a day at a random time, and we will literally change the way your brain is wired.
That is really cool. And just quickly, how so is just App Store, whatever Google Play, whatever that one is, because I own an iPhone, so I don't really know that one too well. But is that just easily downloadable and you just sign up?
So, quick clarification, and this always confuses people, it is not an app. There's
Okay.
nothing to download. You don't need a smartphone. We're not on the app stores. It's literally you go to copenotes.com, you type in your phone number, you press submit. So it is the simplest, easiest thing you've ever done. If you sign up and it takes you longer than 4 seconds, you did it wrong.
Okay. I was gonna say it sounds a little challenging. I don't know if I can do that. No, but that that is really, really awesome. I'm really it's I always think it's awesome when someone takes something they've struggled with, obviously has overcome it or has, worked on overcoming it and then helps other individuals who are going through it. And I think that's really something that you've done. And I admire you for that. I, commend you for that. And thank you for doing that. I've heard you say that mental health is a missed opportunity in the event space. So kind of explain what you mean by that now that you've kind of talked about your mental health journey.
Yeah, I have spoken at a lot of really um like 10 years ago, I wouldn't think I would speak at a mechanical contractors conference the same week as a banking association conference as a mental health speaker. And then now that's like a normal week for me. Is like doing all of these total like a realtors association and in a like an education, like a teachers statewide teachers conference. Like I think what we're seeing in the marketplace is a general realization, albeit in my opinion, way too late, that all of the attendees in your audience at your event are human beings who have brains inside of their skulls and are experiencing stress or anxiety or burnout or compassion fatigue or depression. They have spouses who are not well. They turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms to get through these challenges. And I think now a lot of planners are waking up to the idea that if I include something in my agenda for the event that addresses the human condition, of the people who are in the audience that they will leave and tell everybody and their grandma about their experience at that conference because we spoke to them as not captain this or chief that, but as Jake or
Yeah.
John. And that resonance, I think, for so many years, planners have said, well, we really need to focus on industry learnings. And we're really trying to focus on making sure that we're equipping people with the professional skills they need. And I'm like, let me tell you something, honey, without the personal skills, the professional skills, all the professional skills in the world will fall flat.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. So what would you say to a leader then who would be hesitant to bring in, a mental health speaker to talk to their employees?
First thing I would say is I get it. Totally get it. I used to be that guy. So I deeply empathize with you. The second thing I would say is there's this interesting idea that if you bring in someone to discuss mental health in the workplace, that it'll be a lot of like, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya and do goat yoga together or something. Like maybe there are people like that. And honestly, that sounds like low-key fun. So like maybe you should invite someone to do that. But I'm a little bit more practical and real. And I want to leave not only telling stories about how I've overcome these things in workplaces, but also leave giving people like practical, actionable tips that they can employ that I can virtually guarantee will affect the culture because culture is just a bunch of people interacting with each other. And there is nothing that either warms or cools a culture like mental health when it's so dependent on interpersonal interaction.
No, you're so right in that. Just side note real quick. How would you sing Kumbaya in a metal voice?
Oh man, I didn't even get to warm up before this call. We need to do like a 4 minute full on full song rendition. This is when we like dial up AI and we're like, hey, make a death metal version of Kumbaya. That's what I'm talking about.
I love it, dude. I think that's so like if you told me someone was coming in to speak about mental health and then you showed up and obviously I can't see you, but I saw all the tattoos and you're a metal singer, like I would just be like, all right, man, I'm strapping in this seat right now. This is gonna be one of the most interesting talks I've ever had. And I'm sure
Dude,
you get that reaction. Like share some of the reactions you get with people.
yeah, I love it when people think that I'm not there for they think they're at the wrong session or something like, oh shoot, I'm trying to go to the session. Like, what is this guy? But what I really like is, so I'll just use one example. I spoke in Texas earlier this year, and it was like a big construction conference. So it's all of these leaders, like C-suite executives at these big construction companies. And afterwards, so many of them, like the refrain from that conference was, you look and talk and act just like all my guys out there in the field. And what's sad is I realized I don't listen to them the way I listened to you when you were
Mm,
on that stage. And sometimes I write them off because they are kind of tough. They do have, they got neck tattoos or face tattoos or hand tattoos, and I accidentally write them off. And then here you are looking exactly like them, talking about stuff that they're going through. And I think, man, I need to slow down and listen. And I love watching people. It's really funny, Jake. Every once in a while, I'll hear somebody say, you're surprisingly well spoken considering, and then they just kind of trail off. And I'm like, ouch. But also, it's good that you're experiencing this culturally so you can take that back to the people that you lead and hopefully make a change.
no, yeah, that's so interesting. It's almost like you hear people all the time say to me, I've been telling my kids when I speak at high schools, I've been telling my kids what you said for years, but they don't listen to me, but they listen to you. So I love how you kind of represent that group. It's almost like talking to the kid in the room about what they've been listening to for years. However, when it comes from you, it's different. So, um, lastly, Johnny, just really give us just your one. I mean, I know you have many bullet points, but just one bullet point when it comes to mental health in a workplace or and when you're on stage and giving that message. What's one critical message that you want people to hear listening to this right now?
Um, People ask me this all the time, and I think it varies. The thing that just popped in my head right now, I'm going to go with my gut,
Mhm.
is that I encourage people to stop comparing the severity of what they're going through to other people in order to invalidate their own challenge. Like someone, I'm sure people have said to you, Jake, they're like, wow, my wife died of cancer, and then like I got laid off, and then I was homeless for 4 years, and then I was diagnosed with this illness, and but I can see, so I don't have it as bad as you. And you're like, don't discount all of the difficult things that you've been through. Like, I pray that people listening will at least honor the difficulty of what they have faced and take that as like put that as a feather in your cap. Like you have been through some really difficult stuff, and please don't minimize that by highlighting somebody else's challenge and assuming that you're not as tough or you're not as capable of overcoming just because someone else's challenge looks different.
I love that. No, comparison is it robs happiness, and that's an interesting way to compare. No, most people don't ever, I guess, assimilate that with comparing, but I think that's absolutely right, and I love that. I really appreciate you sharing that, man. Appreciate you sharing your story, your faith, and everything in between. So, with that, I'm going to ask you just. I know you haven't warmed up, but just give us just one little metal voice, real quick.
See, Jake, I wish I could, but I'm gonna flip this and say, if you really want to hear me do it, you got to come book me in your city.
I love that, Johnny. Well, thank you
That's
so
call
much.
to action.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Engage Presents. If you want to find Johnny Crowder, go ahead, letsengage.com, and his profile will be right there. Awesome, man. Thank you for joining us today, Johnny.
Thank you, Jake.